Picture this. You're in the US, doing everyday stuff, grabbing a coffee, filling your gas tank, maybe buying groceries, using dollars like it's second nature. But then you start thinking about traveling and book a trip. First stop, Germany. You're excited until you realize something strange. That same dollar you've been using every day, it's now worth only 89 cents in euros. Huh? No big deal, you think. Just a different currency. But then you fly to Vietnam, and suddenly, your $1 is worth 25,000 dong. 25,000? That can't be right, can it? Now you're curious. You open Google and type in $1 in Iranian rial. Boom, over 42,000 reals for a single dollar. From one Google search, your dollar just transformed into a small fortune, at least on paper. That's when it hits you. Why does money change so much from country to country? Why isn't $1 the same as €1, or 1 dong, 1 rial? Who decides that? Why do these numbers keep shifting all the time? And why do they bounce around every second like the stock market? Well, that's exactly what we're exploring today. We're going to uncover the hidden story behind money, how currencies are valued, why exchange rates exist, and why your dollar is never quite the same from one country to the next. Trust me, once you understand this, you'll never look at your money the same way again. Hold on. If you haven't subscribed to 10-Minute Quest yet, now's the perfect time. Hit that subscribe button. For a long time, money was directly linked to precious metals like gold. The gold standard was a system in which a country's currency was backed by a certain amount of gold, maintaining stable exchange rates. However, as economies grew and global trade expanded, countries began to move away from the gold standard and towards fiat money in the 1970s. Fiat money is currency that has value because the government says it does, and everyone believes it. It is not backed by a physical commodity like gold. The value of fiat currency depends on whether people need it. If many people require the money, they will struggle to acquire it, which increases its value. If nobody needs the money, its value decreases. This is why the currencies of influential economies, like the US dollar, are more valuable, because more people require them. When the value of money decreases, this is called inflation. Inflation means that when prices rise overall, each unit of money buys fewer goods and services. High inflation occurs when there is too much money relative to the amount of goods and services available. For example, in 2022, you could buy 2 pieces of bread for $10. But due to high inflation, by 2025, you can only buy 1 piece of bread for $10. This means you buy less with the same amount of money. Interest rates are the percentages that show how much it costs to borrow money. When interest rates in a country are high, they offer higher returns on investments, which attracts foreign investors. Foreign investors must buy that country's currency in order to invest, increasing demand for the currency and strengthening it. For example, if the interest rate in the US is higher than in Germany, Germans may exchange their euros for dollars and invest in US savings accounts or bonds that offer higher returns. This surge in demand for dollars strengthens the US dollar. However, a country cannot simply increase its interest rate to as high a level as possible in order to attract investors. At high interest rates, borrowing becomes costly for citizens and businesses, which slows down the economy and leads to higher unemployment. Therefore, the central bank must adjust the interest rate based on the country's needs. When China opened up to foreign investors in the late 1970s, most foreign companies began building factories there. To buy land, build factories, pay labor, and cover other costs, they needed Chinese currency, the yuan or renminbi. This increased demand for the yuan is making it more valuable and generating significant wealth for China. Foreign investors are drawn to countries with stable economies and political systems because they are more investment-friendly and have stronger currencies. A stable government ensures consistent rules and laws, making it easier for businesses to invest and operate. A stable economy also reduces the likelihood of losing value in the currency, making it more attractive to investors. Exports and imports are 2 key factors that influence a currency's value. Countries like Japan export cars, which increases demand for the yen. Island nations in the Pacific, such as Tuvalu, use higher value currencies like the Australian dollar or the US dollar to facilitate trade. To achieve a strong and stable currency, countries can peg their currency to that of stronger, more stable nations. For example, Brunei, a small oil-rich sultanate in Southeast Asia, pegs its currency, the Brunei dollar, at a 1-to-1 value against the Singapore dollar, making the two currencies equal. Another example is Belize, a small country bordering Mexico, which pegs its currency, the Belize dollar, to the US dollar. The exchange rate is set so that one Belize dollar is always worth half a US dollar. However, fixing a currency stabilizes it and makes it easier to manage, but it also makes it dependent on the economy of the stronger nation. If one currency falls, the other will fall as well. This means that if one currency survives, the other will either survive or fail along with it. It makes one wonder why we don't just have a single global currency, a world dollar, to eliminate exchange rates and all the hassle. The closest example is the euro, which works for those living in the Eurozone, but it comes with the trade-off of losing control over their own currency to the European Central Bank. This means that no single country can adjust its monetary policy to address its own issues without potentially affecting other countries. Another reason a single global currency isn't feasible is that nations have different needs. For example, a country that imports a lot might want a strong currency to make imports cheaper, while a country focused on exports would want a weaker currency so that its products are more affordable to other nations. This is why China has been accused of deliberately undervaluing its currency, a practice known as currency devaluation. Countries don't just aim for the strongest currency. They need stability to meet their unique needs. Every nation has different goals, and a stable currency is key to economic growth and stability. And that's the world of currency and exchange rates. Money is more than just paper or numbers. It's tied to economies, politics, and decisions that shape the world around us. So, the next time you exchange money, remember, there's a lot more happening behind the scenes than you might think.